calling the meeting of the Wednesday, 2020 Affordable Housing meeting to order. Before we get into it, I've got to read our COVID-19 message. So as a preliminary matter, this is Daniel Crossan, Chair of the Grafton Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on this agenda are present and can hear me. So members, I will call your name. Please respond in the affirmative. Just state each one of your names. Elizabeth.
Here.
Kurt Williams.
Here.
Chris Colas.
Here.
Jen Thomas.
Here.
And staff member Chris McGoldrick.
Here.
Great. This open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of the emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website at www.graftonmass.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensure access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by the law. The meeting will feature a public comment. For this meeting, the Trust is convening by Zoom, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference, or I actually don't think anybody is doing that for this meeting, but it is being recorded. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and that take care that you're not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided, members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first the item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting. Introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first read public comments, questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board or other responses. Public comments during the meeting, I haven't received any in advance. The public comments during the meeting will be conducted through the chat feature. We'll read real-time comments, questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature, followed by real-time board applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So let's get started. So I'm going to jump into the minutes. We don't have them in front of you. Kurt and I talked a little bit offline. He did just get me some of the ones that were a little. I'm going to table this in part because I realized after doing the agenda at the May 14th meeting, this is all new, and we didn't have someone assigned to take minutes. So we're gonna have to go back and possibly look at the recording and recreate those. But Kurt has worked on the ones that were the past dated ones from February and older. So we'll kind of make that an action item to kind of get those all addressed, any past ones, and try to wrap that up for our next meeting. So we have a clear history of what we've done. If you look at the town's website, we're missing some, and I know we haven't met every month, so there's not going to be one for every single month of 2019 this year, but there are some ones we want to take care of and clean up. I'm not sure that I need to take a vote to. You need to take a vote to table those. I'm not sure that that's even necessary. just move those to the, yeah, okay. So let's jump into the discussion items. The first item, the most, probably should take a little bit more time tonight, is one concerning emergency rental assistance. So if you were at the last meeting and there was a lot of discussion on this, myself, Jen, and Elizabeth were definitely involved in some forums and discussions. So for Kurt and Chris, let me just kind of give a little bit of background in where things were at. Back when the crisis really went into full swing in April, we were invited to a forum hosted by CHAPA in the Mass Housing Partnership. And what the forum was about was, using CPA money for emergency rental assistance and practices and what that means. And specifically, this would be for people who don't apply for some form of rental assistance. That's part of it. So there was a great meeting. There was a lot of good takeaways there. The main thing that we sort of saw right away was, if we're going to do this, and it's this consensus within the community that we should, then we have to find a partner to help us do this. If we were to put out, we have a rental assistance program on town website, folks in need will be able to reach out and whether they qualify for that. The five of us would probably not be the best qualified people to manage that and to have the time to do it, and to do it accurately, clearly, and with transparency. There are organizations that know how to do it. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask Chris to kind of talk about that a little bit. So we got involved because the CPA reached out and they asked us, to get involved. It affects people who are in affordable housing. At least that's how I can see this. I mean, a lot of the folks in town that are in affordable housing would maybe be the first people that would be struck by this. It's overlapping, but this is something that's new. It's not is built into the core mission of the affordable housing, which is to build, develop, create, and maintain affordable housing. I sort of think the maintain is part of this, because I don't want to see people being evicted from their homes. But it is different. It is new, and it's not something the town's ever done. It's not something the CPA's engaged in, to my knowledge, and certainly not the affordable housing trust. There's sort of a lot to unpack with it and understand about it. What we saw on the forum was that typically this is a short-term relief plan. It wasn't an open-ended situation. It would be for threats. That being said, we don't know exactly what the need will be. And I don't think there's a way to really guarantee that what the need will be until you get out there, until it's there and people reach out. And that could be happening in the next, we'll see that escalate in the next, I'd say, 2 months, mainly because the eviction moratorium that was put in place ends, I think, in August. I think it was a 4-month. It was maybe April, May, July. A lot of the extended employee benefits, unemployment benefits will start to change there too. So I think we're going to start seeing that. To look at need, all you have to do is take a deep dive into our housing production plan. And there's a lot of data in there that talks about where our community is and where it stands at affordability. And there is a lot of people that are at risk and are living at or below the poverty level. In terms, when we look at Grafton as a whole, but a few people that are in that situation, and their situation is going to be exacerbated by everything that's happened with COVID-19. I'd be shocked to see it otherwise. Worst case scenario, you could have 30, 40 people or more, for 3 months. This could be a considerable amount of money. So that's a conversation we're going to have to continue to have. To do is, I know Jen and Elizabeth work, so I'd like to ask you to speak to it, and then Chris, I'd like if you have something to bring to us specifically with the agencies that are out there, we'd like to go there. So Jen, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, this program was first Actually, CPC allows for rental assistance. It is part of the original Preservation Act. This program was kind of highlighted due to COVID. CPC is a funding agency, so in terms of running a program, it's really not the appropriate place because they're more, just like if CPC funds repairs on old, one Grafton Common, they're not going to actually be the people that run the project. So typically other towns, when they're doing this, they either have their planning department or they have some sort of housing authority or trust actually run the program. And additionally, CPC, to use them, it has to go through a town meeting vote. So the trust is just a more flexible entity to be able to manage a program like this, because if you had to apply individually for everybody that needed rental assistance through town meeting, it just doesn't make any sense. So Dan, Elizabeth, and Chris and I and some other people talked. It just seemed like a good fit. In terms of the money, as you guys know, the CPC transfers reserve money, every year to the Affordable Housing Trust. So there is money there, but that doesn't mean that if more money is needed, that it can't be applied for from CPC for this purpose, in October. So if this program gets started and it feels like, oh my gosh, we're using way more trust money than we should, there certainly is a way to apply, just like for any other project. You can apply and get more CPC money for this purpose. But again, as Dan said, we really don't know what the need is going to be yet. It's kind of something that we have to kind of see how it goes. But at this town meeting, there's another 40 or 50,000 coming to the trust again from CPC. So there is some money there. The other thing we can discuss and think about is during the webinar, some towns just used a sum of money. So we could decide to do that too. Like, we're going to do this program with 100 grand or 50 grand or whatever it is, and when that money runs out, until we just, until the trust says, well, maybe we can offer it round two. So there's different ways to approach it. So just to, I think it helps people in town keeping their rental units. So it seems like if we can get somebody to manage it for us, that is the biggest roadblock. And Chris has been researching that, because I don't have time to go through people's applications and figure out if they qualify for it and check, because the checks would go to the landlords, they wouldn't go to the renter. So I'm all set. Elizabeth?
And I know last night Dan mentioned also the use of, or the potential use of grants and other sources of money too, which I think could also be a good addition to any money that we could provide, as well as CPC money.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make. We need to do things sort of on a parallel course here. We want to find the partnership so this can get off the ground and get running. And at the same time, we KCPA money towards this, but we also want to make sure that there's other funding sources that we haven't talked about. I want to belabor the process, but are there things that we don't know about? I've looked around some other communities, and they just send you to the RAFT rental assistance, which is really geared towards low to moderate income people I think it's funded from the DHCD. And that's like, you're at 50% AMI, and then it's based on other things, but there are other sources that could be out there. So yeah, thank you, Elizabeth, for making that point. Chris and Kurt, do you have any questions at this point?
That is, I have been looking at, I haven't been able to go through too many applications now, but I do want to compile a list of those existing agencies that might be able to help administer this program. So there's a number that I know that I've personally worked with that are in the area, but I did want to go through the applications. So typically when a affordable home goes for a sale or a new rental development comes in and does the marketing, they hire an agency that then goes through that process for them. And so that was one of the, at the forums that I've attended, that was one of the overarching kind of recommendations, is that those existing agencies would be more capable of and have the capacity to take on that kind of a lift. And so I guess my question is, I don't know how the board would want to review, I'm happy to reach out to those agencies after I get a more robust list, but I don't know if the board, if the Affordable Housing Trust would want to get, formal proposals from those agencies, or just kind of a temperature read of which ones would be willing to participate in this program. So that's kind of, I guess, my ask tonight, is how you envision that outreach to those entities.
So thanks, Chris. What I would say here is that, we're on it's a little bit of a time crunch. We know that the eviction moratorium is going to happen soon. So I don't think we want to turn this into a lengthy interview process where it takes 6 months to just the right fit. I'm sure if we had a few that you could put in front of us with a strong recommendation, I would like to try to get a vote on it by our July meeting, so we can try to get that up and running. Over that course of time, we can answer some other questions and take some other action. So again, this is totally new. This is something, no one's done before, and, here in this town, in this community. So we're trying to wrap our arms around it. And I think it's that we got to do it the right way. So I think that's the number one thing. Once you have that agency that you can, move forward with, you could have something on the town website by August. I think that would be very fast, for considering we just started the conversation in April. I think that would be a very aggressive to get this done. And in the meantime, while that's happening, we can do we can explore the other funding sources outside of CPA to make sure that those are available. It may, and the folks we talk to at these agencies may further educate us on that. And it may be the best idea to say, well, look, you're reaching out to us. Let's there's possibilities through the state. So I would say let's move to do that as quickly as possible. I don't want to make it too arduous. There should be some due diligence done but I'd like to try to get something we can vote on by July. If it need be, we could have an emergency, a quick meeting just to vote on that beforehand. I do have a question that's just come up. Okay, in the meantime, is there an expressed emergency need? If there is an expressed emergency, could funds from the Grafton Strong account be used for rental assistance? I actually don't know. I think that's something we should find out. That's something we could ask. I'm not sure. Jen.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could be. Again, the Grafton Strong account has around $10,000 in it right now, and it's for COVID-related expenses. So I don't know specifically, that goes through our Council on Aging director, and she's been vetting, we haven't actually received a completed application. Applications would be vetted. I think if there is an emergency situation, maybe it's not necessarily the rent, maybe it's Grafton Strong pays for their heat instead, or their other expenses, food or but I do think the Grafton Strong account, if somebody has a need, we can figure out a way to help them. I mean, that's why it's there, for COVID related things. So whether it's straight out rent or paying other bills so that they can pay their rent, I think something could be worked out for sure.
Okay, let me check. I might have one more question. Nope, I don't. Okay. Chris and Kurt, do you have any thoughts? Chris?
I just was wondering who's coming up with the qualifications and everything?
So yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and that's where we would talk to the agencies, because it has to be a defined, sort of a defined hardship that brought on by COVID. That's a lot of things we would want to find out, and in use of CPA money for this, specifically for what's happening. So yeah, they look at it and do the due diligence with the renter who's saying this is what happened, and they've got to determine that the person actually needs the help, because anybody could say I need assistance, and I understand that some of reaching out for that, but we want to make sure in terms of fairness and whatnot that it's managed properly and done right. So yeah, they have the experience to do that, and that's what we will we'll learn more about as we talk to these agencies.
Okay.
And based on the webinar, a lot of it, it's a detailed process. They look at your unemployment records and your tax returns, and I think these agencies really vet people, which again is a good thing, but it's also sometimes, I think, a little harder for people to reach out for assistance, right? If you know that the process might be arduous. So I think, kind of reaching that good, happy medium to making sure that we're making sure that people qualify, but also not making it so arduous because it's hard to ask for help, so you don't want to make it so arduous that if you need help, you don't feel like you can reach out and ask for it. And also just to mention real quick, other funding sources, the town is putting an application in or putting the request in for the CARES Act for federal money, and rental assistance is included in there as well. So there are other funding sources that are currently being pursued, and I know that people will look at others as well.
Jen, how long? What's the estimate? I mean, you may not know this, but you're putting a grant. Do you have any idea of how long that would take for the CARES Act? Yeah. Okay, so that speaks to the immediate need and sort of a bit of the urgency of what we're trying to do. And I know it's not something that we were talking about in January and February. This is not something we were ready for, but we're kind of putting all our ducks in a row right now. Elizabeth, you had something.
I know that there's been some question in town about ways other than electronic means to reach out to people. So we should also think about how we can advertise this, not just on the website, but in other media as well.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think that's a great point. Not everybody has a computer. Not everybody has internet. And some of the people with most need, maybe the folks that need to do a little bit more. I think that's a great point. Thank you. Hey, Kurt, do you have any thoughts at this point?
My question is around, so the actual application to the agencies that might be able to help with this. Do we know, is there kind of like a standard set of required details that they need? I'm just thinking about what information we need to get together to move forward with those applications. Maybe we don't know that yet, but just curious.
Chris, do you have any ideas?
I mean, I think I can reach out informally, but as much detail as we can get on how we'd like to see the program kind of be developed. And I think we should, I'll continue to try and talk with other towns and see what their kind of strategies are. But kind of what I'm hearing one of the immediate needs that it seems like we're defining is that expiration of the eviction moratorium. And so I could see that being something that we really kind of start to focus on for the program, to narrow the scope. If that's something we want to start for an immediate need, I can talk to them in that context. But I think I'll reach out informally and see what they, kind of how Dan was saying, I think see what they come up with. And they may be in contact with other communities as well, or other agencies that are doing programs that are similar. So I'll also keep that open, and obviously I think, but that's as we can envision the program, that'll help to facilitate that discussion with them.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, you know, we do our due diligence on any organization that we work with and that is going to be involved with the town, and that we're going to be using to work with the vulnerable part of the population. So, you know, most organizations, you know, they'll have some kind of package that evidences, you know, how they manage themselves and how they, you know, maintain privacy and how they, you know, all the things that they do to you know, show they're good, you know, good at what they do and that they are covering what we need to cover. I mean, we do it in my side of the world all the time. So that would be a dual process. And do we have any other questions or concerns at this point regarding rental assistance? Obviously, I open this up to anyone who may be watching in the public if they have any questions before I move on to the next discussion item. So I'll just say this, like maybe, you know, I'm looking at a meeting and going back to our previous schedule, which was second Wednesday in every month. It typically, like in the middle of the summer, if there's nothing going on, we might not meet, but this looks like we're going to need to meet in July. It's something that's an imperative, and we have some other things to talk about. So I think I've got a couple action items here. And Chris, if you need me or any of us to get on phone calls or be part of conference calls just to learn what's happening, we're not violating any open meeting laws. We're just hearing from people. I would, if that could happen, that we could do that. That'd be great. I would love to have it narrowed down by the week of the 17th, if we could. That starting to get towards the 4th, and that'll give us a bit of time. I think that we can figure it out by that week. You know, it's a tight time frame for you. I know around the week of the 15th to the 19th, if we identify an agency. I'd like to do that only because if we see the need is growing and we want to get that organization up and running, we do it. Maybe we can even do it before our next meeting. Otherwise, we can at least have something to vote on. As at the same time, you know, Grafton Strong and any other funding sources we can find, I think would be important. And then the next stages that would be at our meetings, we would be talking about, and I'd like to, in July to come back and say, okay, how are we planning on budgeting for this? As Jen said, do we want to just say we're going to open up with this amount, and when it runs out, it runs out. But if the need is still growing, we can put more into it, and we can work with the CPA to talk about what, as in, if the need expands, what we can do. So great. So there's nothing to vote on here. This is all discussion. I'm moving on to, which is Pine Street. Now, when I put the together, I wasn't sure if the announcement was going to be made on this at the select board meeting. So I'll just give, this is, Jen and I were both invited by the town administrator to be on a committee to review the finalists for the, who are be the developers at Pine Street. That's the property up behind next to the station, old state hospital. So there was 2 finalists that it came down to. They were both outstanding. We did fairly unanimously, after some thought and thoughtful deliberation, settle on one of the developers. The company's name is GSX. This was brought to the select board last night and reviewed. there's obviously still a lot of work that's going to have to be done on their part in town. But just, I don't have a lot of detail to give you tonight. I think we're going to be getting into it. So, with what we're dealing with rental assistance, I probably wouldn't perceive us having a greater conversation more this summer, but maybe by the fall, we could have them come in and have an update, and who knows, maybe we'll be back in the building. And if not, we'll be here. Maybe get a presentation. You can see the layout and schematics and what's happening. But to give you just kind of the rundown, and I'll let Jen talk a little bit about it too. What it came down to is two things. One, for me, the other developer was seeking $900,000 in funding from the Affordable Housing Trust. So that was way too much. That would take a lot of, that's basically the funds that we received from the Pulte developed to go, and that's a real asset to us. I felt it was way too much. But even still, looking at both the developments, the other developer, the company's called NOAA, had a very, I think, healthy approach to affordable housing. And I don't think we've seen the last of them. I think they're at, we may be working with the town, maybe working with in the future. I like their presentation and their thought process, and with regards to historical preservation and kind of a very, I think, progressive affordability. That being said, Dex also had, I think, the numbers on were high. The apartment building would have 6 units, I believe, and they would be 25% of those would be. So that means we would get credit towards our SHI for all of the units. Now, of course, we can't count our chickens before they hatch. We're not there yet, but if that happens, then we are literally, I think we're like, we're like 40 or 50 units shy of 10%, hitting our 10% figure for affordability, which is tremendous. The other piece to it was that I liked the fact that there were efficiencies in one bedrooms in there as well. It still did speak to the need for workforce housing, and being near the T station, I think it was just a really good fit in that regard. It's a good sized development, and I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about that. But me being there as part of the affordable housing and representing the Affordable Housing Trust, it was hard to go against it. The fact that they weren't looking for any funds from us, and the fact that it was the most bang for our buck, which is what the instructions we've gotten for years regarding developments. I also think it was it established a nice sort of template or blueprint for the town to work with agencies like ourselves to kind of keep these things moving. I was happy with the town's commitment in the RFP process to develop housing. I really do think that he's around at a corner. We've got a long way to go with regards to affordable housing, but I've been on the trust now almost 6 years, and it was a tough conversation to have when I came on, and I think there's been a change all around, and I was really happy to be a part of it. Learn some things, and I think it has great potentiality. Good news for us, we don't have to do a whole lot, which is great. But I would like you all to sort of meet them and see them to kind of sense about how these things work for the long term, because we're not letting Elizabeth and Kurt go. They're going to be here on the trust for as long as we can keep them. So if does anyone have, there's not really, just wanted to open that up. And Jen, would you like to speak to it as well?
Yeah, just quick. I mean, the process, I think, lends itself really well to, so the process, and Chris can speak more to it, but so we got into the sales partnership agreement with the state. It's state property, but we took ownership of the property, and if develop it in a certain amount of time, the amount that we get of the purchase price, is higher. So I think at this, like 60% of the purchase price. So and to look to develop this, but when we went through the RFP process, when the RFP was written, the trust really had the ability to, I think Dan and worked with the planners and to emphasize affordable housing. That was part of the plan. And I just think it's also a good model for other ways for us to develop other parcels in town or other projects. Like if the trust, if there's a vacant lot or whatever that we're considering, it's just, if you do this request for proposal program, we can kind of shape, do we want duplexes, do we want apartments, do we want single family homes, and then we can kind of help drive the proposals, and then the proposals come back and we cannot, it's really what we're looking for. So, I mean, it's great. The GSX is actually coming on Tuesday to the select board meeting to do a presentation. So if anybody wants to tune in and see it there, I mean, I'm sure they'll come to the Affordable Housing Trust as well. The plans right now are conceptual, so there's not a lot of detail. So that I'm sure is going to change. The initial proposal was just over 300, but that could go down. That could go down depending on once they get in the nitty gritty and designing their parcel. But this one, as Dan had mentioned, they didn't require anything from the Affordable Housing Trust. Purchase price was 1.7 million. They are not requiring any tax TIFs at all, like tax increment. What's the last letter? I'm TIF program, but they're not requiring that. There's no credits, tax credits either that they're looking for. So it's pretty much a straight out sell and they take over. And there's also some commercial space as well. Just over 10,000 square feet of commercial space. So retail shops, that sort of thing. So it's exciting. And again, it's a lot of units, but it's a lot of units that we need. We really need that type of housing. So I think it's a good plan.
Thanks, Jen. Any other questions or comments on that before we move on? Pine Street? Okay, great. As Jen mentioned, there's other parts of town. There's the old Fisherville Mill. Over in years past, we had met with Gene Bernat early this year. It seems like a long time ago now. We met with him again briefly. I think that if he could find the right partnership, this kind of thing could happen again. And it would be nice to have that kind of bookend on both sides of town. So, we'll see what happens there. So next item on the agenda is Worcester Street. So I'm bringing this to the trust. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this, but a citizen's petition was put forward to transfer Worcester Street, the lot at Worcester Street, to the Affordable Housing Trust. Is everyone aware that is happening? Yeah. So Elizabeth knows. So this is a chunk of land that was once the old Grafton High School was torn down before I was. It has been a vacant lot for that entire time period. Just the way this happened, citizen put a petition together. I did get a courtesy call as it happened. I support the transfer of town-owned land to the trust when it makes sense. And this is a chunk of land that we were asking for when I first came on the trust. So it's something we're going to have to. Hasn't happened yet, but it's something that I think we should support. And I think it's also something that we need to think a lot about what we're doing and what we would do with it. This is not some place that's going to be 400 rental units. It's not that kind of property at all. It's too near the common. We're thinking about the whole community there, and it'd have to be similar collaboration. We would be the ones driving the RFP on that. But as Jen and I have both mentioned, there's sort of this template now to work these things out. Town is learning. So town assets that put these previous RFPs together, would be helpful for us to do that. But I think it would be something for the Affordable Housing Trust to be able to drive and make happen. It could be an exciting opportunity. We're not there yet, but if it happens, we're going to have to start thinking about what we do there and what kind of housing goes there and that kind of thing. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a good candidate for like some townhouses. like, I think that would work well in that particular part of town. It wouldn't add too much like traffic. And the kind of people that like might want a townhouse would like to be close to the center of town, and especially with the potential shopping area going in where the DPW site used to be. I think that would be good.
Yes, I would agree, Elizabeth. You're spot on. It's a tough location to plug a business into. It's a residential neighborhood. Certainly, the fact that there's been nothing there for a long time, if folks are used to it being like that, there'll be concerns and there may be even opposition. So that's where you want to be collaborative. You want to work with the community as best you can. And architecturally, certainly, what could go in there could be, could and should be made to work with the surrounding neighborhood as best as could be. Again, we're not there yet, but I think if and when that does happen, we'll have some additional things to talk about. But it could be something tremendous to sink our teeth into. And like I said, I think the recent developments working on Pine Street, full education. That's about all I have on that. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I'm certainly, the addition of affordable housing on Worcester Street, if, in my opinion, that's not really this isn't the way to go. It's before the horse. I think that if this trust decides that they would like to see development on Worcester Street, we can do the same program that we did with Pine Street. So regardless of whether or not the land is transferred, we can still move forward. So it doesn't have to happen. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if this is something the trust wants to do, it doesn't matter if the land is transferred or not. It can still have the land is not transferred. It just needs directive from this body to bring forward a proposal and say we'd like to put out an RFP for this type of thing, and you just start the process that way. Because whether the trust has the land or the town still has the land, it's still the same staff people that are doing the work. It's not, the trust doesn't have a different staff. It's still the town. So it really doesn't matter who owns the land. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Jen. And I think we'll take that under advisement, and we'll see how this goes. But I think it's important for us to think about that too, like what could be there. Chris has been on the trust with me for a little while here, and we've had conversations about town-owned land, and we've really kind of ran our head up against the wall. It's tough, an easy thing to make happen. And I will repeat that, what I've seen, with developments like Pine Street, again, it's not chiseled into stone yet, but if we have to help make those things happen financially to a certain degree, you're getting a lot more out of it. I mean, you don't want to spend all your time and resources to put 20 units in or 30 units in, and it's in our mission. It's what we should be doing when possible. It's another project we should be working on, and I think it could be a centerpiece for affordable housing. So, but being able to work with the town in concert with with the town and with the developers, really, it's dramatic. The dramatic improvement in the SHI and what you can do, and I think right now the time is now. It just really works well. I wouldn't want to see us get totally bogged down on one development or one project, but I do think that's something we could make happen. And as Jen said, what we've learned is, what I would be afraid of is if we tried to put out an RFP as a trust and then we did all the legwork and we were trying to, as a committee, manage that whole process. We have assets in town. We have folks who are committed and concerned and want to develop affordable housing, and we could be very closely tied to the RFP process and still make that happen. So we'll see how this goes. If it doesn't get transferred, as Jen said, I think it's a good thing for us to think about and say, is this something we want to do and make the ask? So. Does anyone have anything further? Any questions? Okay. I'm right now. I'm tentatively, or not tentatively, I want to get back to the second Wednesday in every month. And I started looking at the calendar, and I know we're running into the holiday weekend. Now I know the world's not open like it used to be, but I kind of wanted to get a check. I wanted to get back to like July 8th would be the next meeting. But in that, anytime earlier, we may need to, we could potentially have some things in the works before then. But as a full trust, does that work for everyone? I wanted to put that out there. Does everyone know what their calendar looks like for that? That's the week after the 4th, and I'm just thinking I don't know if anybody's going to be around. So I'll go around. Elizabeth, do you know if you're going to be available that week?
I have nothing scheduled, so
Okay. How about you, Kurt?
Yeah, July 8th.
Okay, great. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I think so. That
Okay.
should be fine.
Okay. Jen?
Unfortunately, yes. I was supposed to be in London, but I'm not going to be in London. I will be around because things, are canceled.
Right. How about you, Chris Goldrick? Will you be available that week?
I want to say yes tentatively. If I'm not able, I may have another conflict with that weekend, but if I am not able to attend, I'll definitely coordinate to have the information to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Just give us a shout out. We'll try all that information figured out. Well, have that all figured out beforehand so we can kind of manage that. Okay. Before we adjourn, I've only just one housekeeping matter for anybody who's watching tonight. We still do have 2 openings on the Housing Trust. If you're interested, you can go to Boards and Committees Information Center on the town website and follow the instructions there to see. I do know that they should be listing the opening position. The instructions is how to do that, how to make your interest known. We also, there's a CPC forum, public forum on affordable housing. So I will be at my 3rd Zoom meeting in a row tomorrow. So if anybody is interested, I know I put that, I know we're all busy, but this is about so we receive our funding from CPC. CPC's money goes to historical preservation, affordable housing, and recreation. So they have to formulate the plan, what they want to do. So it's an opportunity for us to, speak to what we need and what, where we've been, what we try to do, and where we kind of see ourselves going. So it's a great opportunity, I think, to kind of meet with another important agency in town, one of the most important ones for us anyway, kind of have a conversation about what the affordable housing trust doing. So I put that out there. This isn't a Dan thing. This isn't something that anybody on the trust can be there. And I'm going to do my best to kind of keep those things in front of everybody. So I sent that out. Did everyone get that link? Great. So I think it's pretty much open. So if you can make it, great. I look forward to seeing you. There's anything else? Oh, go ahead, Jen. You have a question?
Well, just that there's an
Go ahead.
open space. The CPC open space one is tonight. It's going on right now. So, and then there's another one on historic preservation. So even though you guys are on affordable housing, if you have interest in the other areas, you'd be encouraged to participate in those meetings as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jen. If we have nothing further to discuss, or no one has any further questions from the public or folks on this meeting, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, do we have to do it by roll call?
Yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth,
Haynes, aye.
Kurt Williams,
Williams, aye.
Chris Tolis,
Colas, aye.
Jen Thomas.
Thomas, I.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everyone.